Okay, everybody, so let's continue. We started yesterday the Gavaldige Sugya of Bishul, and we had a little bit of an introduction into what is the definition of Bishul, what's the definition of a Malacha, the union of Shabbos Kodesh, v'chole v'chole. I want to do like a part 2 of the introduction, sort of like a part 2 introduction, and it's important because sometimes if you get the introduction, if you get the yisodos of each malacha, then the pratim, the details of each malacha come a lot easier to remember and to fit into place. Once you know the general ideas, once you know the foundations of each malacha, then it's easier to go into the details. So yesterday we started with a little bit, today we're going to move on with a bit more of understanding what is Bishul, how does it apply to us, what does it apply to, and then obviously we'll move on to Mitzvah Shem next week to the real details. We'll go through all the different shilas. We're going to spend a long time on this because it's a kedai to get it clear. We'll be talking mamish keseda through Kli Rishon, Kli Sheni, Dover Gush, Dover Lach, Bishul Acha, Bishul Bicha, Bishul Achatzli, Shir Chazorah, Hatmona. There's a lot to be done. We have plenty of time. Be'ez Hashem. We're here to learn. In Achanama we can't learn all of it before Shabbos Kodesh. It will be gavaldik. But we have to try, and we have a goal, right? The Rebbeinu Shem sees that we're trying, right? There's a famous Rabbeinu Yonah in Pirkei Avos. Rabbeinu Yonah tells us in Pirkei Avos, the Mishnah says, Kol she'ma'aseh meruba mechachmasai, chachmasai miskayemes. So, what does that mean in English? That means that if your deeds are more than your knowledge, then your knowledge, your chachma, your wisdom will keep in. Will hold, it will continue, whatever. So Rabbeinu Yonah says, what does that mean? How can a person do more than he knows? If you don't know, then you don't do. You only could do that which you know. You can't do more than you know. You understand what I'm saying? So Rabbeinu Yonah, I'm not going to go through Barikas now, but Rabbeinu Yonah says, he says the pshat is, the Rebbeinu Shem sees that you want very much to do something, you get the schar right now. And Mimela, that's the pshat. Why? Even if right now we don't know all of Hilchos Shabbos, we don't know all of Hilchos Bishul, but we're on the journey, we're on the way, we're trying. We're showing the Rebbeinu Shem, we come every day, we're listening, we're participating, we're involved, we want to know. Then the Rebbeinu Shem will tell us, Gavaldik, right? And Echanami will get the schar right now as if we know everything. So let's continue with our quest of Bishul. Let's continue number 1. Bishul applies not only to foods, by the way. People think Bishul is by food. It's not true. Because if you remember yesterday, we mentioned the Gemara. The Gemara in Shabbos tells us about a piece of wood, a peg, Rashi says, that was wet, had moisture in it, and they put it into an oven. No one's eating a wooden peg. Zog Chazal, you see from there that a Bishul applies even to a non-food. L'dugma, there's a Moedige Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish says, what happens if a person wants to make a blech on Shabbos? He forgot to put a blech before Shabbos. He wants to take off the chulim, for example, and return it, right? We'll talk about it, Be'ez Hashem, when we get to Reish and Gimel Seed Base. We'll get to that sugya later on. But al kaponim, you need a blech. Everyone knows you need a blech. How you make a blech, what is considered to be a blech, a lot to discuss. But if you want to make that blech on Shabbos, so you take a piece of metal, or maybe even aluminum foil, or something similar to that, and you put it on the fire, suk the Chazon Ish, it becomes very, very hot. That is Chatzi She'yasum in a Torah. That's called Bishul. So much so, says the Chazon Ish, that if you take a light bulb, an old-fashioned light bulb, like what we have over here on the chandelier, it's not LED, where the actual item gets very, very hot. It has a coil inside. Take the old Poshet light bulb, where you've got those 2 little pieces sticking out, and you've got a little wire in between. You know what I'm talking about? And that becomes very, very hot. That, Zuk the Chazon Ish, is Bishul. Why is that Bishul? What have I cooked? I've cooked the metal. It becomes hot, it becomes soft. So the Chazon Ish, that's Bishul. A lot of Achronim, Poskim B'cholik on the Chazon Ish, with Moshe and others, Shlomo Zalman and Mincha Shlomo, but Al Kaponim, that's the sheet of the Chazon Ish. Yes?
Is that why electricity is also?
No, good question. Electricity also for many different reasons, and we're not going to go into that this moment of time, but the Chazon Ish held that was one of the reasons. But that, according to most poskim, that doesn't apply. Now, so Bishul applies to food and non-food. Let me ask the Olam Shaila. Simple Shaila. Is it mutter to cook a cucumber on Shabbos Kodesh? That's a good kasha. Why would you? I want to. I would like to have cooked cucumbers. No. Bishul or not? There's no need for it. Is there a problem? I would like to cook cucumbers. So everyone's getting out the shy that don't need it, I don't want to. I want to cook cucumbers. Shloimela. What do you say? Yes or no? Zevi, what are you tying now? What are we handling over there? Yeah. Davey, no?
Depends on eating it up.
Ben, no, Rabbi said, I'm asking a posh de kasha. Lipa, ni? Kenisht. Yeah, I'm going to put it in the oven, yeah. Why not? Because you can't cook. Ah, so you can't cook a cucumber. But I can... A carrot. A carrot, a cooked carrot. No, that's not true. Livey, who does that? Gefilte fish. On the gefilte fish. All right.
I say you're allowed to cook.
You're allowed to cook cucumber. Elimelech paskins that you're allowed to cook a cucumber on Shabbos because I can give them your email address. Get hate mail. What are you tying? Me? What about you say? What is that? Leiby, what are you tying? You're allowed to cook. It doesn't need cooking. It's fully edible. Comes along the Heilige Ran, and the Ran says cooking something that could be eaten the way it is vadai oiva mishum bishul. Zug the Rosh. It's even worse because it's so easy to get cooked because it's basically edible anyway. And also Makasha. I don't think anybody would have said that you're allowed to cook water on Shabbos. I don't think anybody would think that you're allowed to take cold water and heat it up till it gets bubbling on Shabbos Kodesh. Nobody would think that way. Even though water is something you can have raw. You don't have to cook it up. Elamai, Zuktu Vishonim, even something that is totally edible the way it is. Tuli, are you with me? It's Vadai Oiva and Issa Da'araisa Mishum Bishul. Okay? Got it? Just send me the summary of the show afterwards. Okay? Even if it's not the derech, the only asks Rabbi Wittenstein a gewaltige kasha. He's asking a gewaltige kasha, I think. You'll tell me if I'm right. What happens if a person has a piece of heise kegel on the plate, and next to it he wants to put some cucumber salad? Right? Can't done such a thing. Is that bishul? Is that an issur of bishul if I don't want my cucumber cooked for cat? It makes it worse. I don't want hot cucumbers. Why is it osa? Maybe there's no shvach. Maybe there's no shvach to the item.
The only thing you can do is warm it
Yeah.
up.
If it gets out to lettuce boy, it's called cooked. We'll talk about that. We'll get to the level of what's considered to be cooked.
Put challah on top of the crock pot.
Ooh, whoa. Till he's jumping. Are you allowed to put challah on top of the hot crock pot? And how many hours do you have to wait after eating that challah? Huh?
No, we need to
Rabbi said these are basic halachas. Every kid in Israeli Cheder knows this when they were 3. Come on, guys. All right, Rabbi. So let's move on. Let's go. So the definition of bishul is number 1, food and non-food. Number 2, whether it needs to be cooked or it does not need to be cooked, such as cucumbers and everything else. Let's move on. Let's talk about the method of cooking. Very, very important. What is the method of cooking that's asa? So let's go start with number 1. The most chomer, the most nageya, the most practical is bishul be'esh. Right? Eish is fire. And therefore putting something in a fire, avada. I know it's exciting, it's the beginning of this month, it's the Geshmaka Naisa. Just bear with me, Rabbi Yisai, bear with me. Bishul be'esh is an Issa Daraisa, and classic Eish is regular normal fire. However, Zug the Rambam, that something like a piece of metal that heats up, boiling hot, that becomes red, that becomes boiling hot, Zug the Rambam, that's Eish Gomel. Which is why all of our ovens is called Bishul Be'esh. A crock pot, a hot plate, kettles, all of these things are called Eish Mamish, and therefore Bishul would be Asa. Now, Bishul, by the way, doesn't have to mean I take a pot and I cook in a pot. I'll give you a small example. Let's say I have a radiator that's on, boiling hot radiator, and I have a baby bottle of milk, and I need to make it warm. The baby won't drink it when it's cold. I want to make it warm. Am I allowed to put that baby bottle onto the radiator in order to warm up? Another question. What if, for example, and this is very negative, people have in the winter, they put the towels on the radiator so the towel becomes nice and warm, and you wipe your hands when they're wet on a nice warm towel. Did anyone realize that you're over on Bishul when you do that? Simply because you've got a boiling hot radiator, you've got a towel, you're wiping your very wet hands on it, and the radiator is going to be heating up and cooking the water. So there's a famous Chassam Sofer that the Olim are probably wondering, why is he not mentioning the Chassam Sofer, that if something is gone into the air and becomes nothing, it's not really considered to be Bishul. Maybe we'll talk about that at a different stage. But I'm just giving you an idea. Bishul doesn't have to mean in a pot, it doesn't have to mean over a fire, it doesn't even have to mean over an oven. Anything that's used eish is considered to be asa. For example, opening up the hot water faucet. If your hot water system in your house is done with fire, whether it's done by heating up the water in a dud shemesh over here, we'll talk about shemesh in a moment, but it's done with a heating element in the winter that goes on, or it could be even heating up water in water that was heated up by the fire. It's what we call toldas ha'or, which means that if, for example, we're putting on the hot water faucet, if hot water comes out, more cold water gets replaced and gets heated up by water that's already hot by a heating element. That's called toldas ha'or, and that's asa. I'll give you an example of toldas ha'or. If you take a saucepan, you take a frying pan, and you put it on the fire, it's boiling hot. Take it off the fire and crack an egg in it. If that egg gets cooked, that's called bishul. Even though Lemaisa, there's no fire, there's no oven, there's no heat. But the saucepan got heated up by the fire. It's called toldas ha'or. It's also a da'oraisa. What's that?
There is heat. There's heat in the pan.
Right, but there's no actual source of fire. But you don't need the source of fire. You got it? Okay, Ben, yes? What's considered cooking? We'll talk about that on next week when we talk about the definition of what's roilu eat. We'll talk about that. We'll have to get stage by stage. Rabbi Yisrael, last sugya for today. Bishul b'chama. Bishul b'chama means cooking in the sun. Cooking in the sun, the Gemara tells us clearly, is mutter. There's no problem with cooking in the sun. That means if you go outside and you cook in the sun, then 100% mutter. I'll tell you a Mordecai Maisa. In fact, Rav Vosna and Shevet HaLevi and Chacham Ovadia and Yalkut Yosef has this shaila. This was a Maisa Shahoya in Bnei Barak. Rabbi said, listen to the Maisa. Lo aleinu such a Maisa. Lo aleinu such a Maisa. It's a terrible, terrible Maisa. You should never know such things. They came home from shul after a davening. It was a Mordecai davening, it was Geschmack, the Dveikas, the singing, the Avos Hashem. It was Gavaldik. I know where they davened. Anyway, so they came back from davening, and Lo aleinu, you should never know such a thing. Rachmana litzlan. They came back and the chulant was cold. Terrible Maisa. The chulant was cold.
It's almost as bad as cold soup.
The chulant was cold. But they had an eitzah. What's the eitzah? They lived in Bnei Barak. There was scorching heat outside. It was boiling. Let's take the pot into the scorching heat, into the summer, into the street. We'll take it outside. We'll heat it up by the sun. So they started doing that. They brought it outside. And they're waiting, and like, okay, it's not happening. So the son comes up with an idea. And he says, Gavaldig idea. Everyone take a magnifying glass and stand around the pot, like Zoe. You're going to concentrate the rays of sun in. Rabbi said within 25 minutes the pot was bubbling. Maisa Shahaya. Okay? So Rav Vosna has a tshuva in Shevet HaLevi, Chacham Ovadia, also in Yalkut Yosef, and they say it's 100% mutter. It's called Bishul B'chama. You're cooking in the sun. You're concentrating the rays of sun, and that's fine. Cooking in the sun is mutter. By the way, included in this shaila is a dud shemesh in Eretz Yisrael, right? And now they have it in other places as well. I saw in Lakewood as well. They have it now, where the sun gets put into, they have this solar panels, whatever, heats up the water. These are all shailas of Bishul B'chama or Toldas Chama, which I'm not going to go into at this moment of time. It goes past our subject. Mitzvah Shem Rabbi say next year we'll talk about the definition of what is called Bishul. Have a wonderful day.